Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are live here from the Nukeshot Endurance Series, the Season 4.5 special event. It is the Porsche versus Toyota Multiclass race here from Circuit de la Sarthe, the legendary circuit in the midst of France. And it is, of course, featuring two classes of cars, the Group 1s, the hybrid LMPs, and the Group 3 or GTs, as we should maybe call them here today. It's of course the 919 and TSO 50s going head to head, and the Porsche 911 RSRs going head to head with the very much new Toyota Supra racing concept, the Gr3 racing concept. You are of course watching Half the Race Gone. My name is DirtenDK, and it will be my utmost of pleasures taking you and talking you through the action here tonight. We have just gotten underway with qualifying, so we have 20 minutes from now on. Mind you that 20 minutes of qualifying, and mind you that, of course, the racers will be allowed to finish whatever laps they start. So if they pass the line at 1958, they'll be all good for another lap of running, just like we know from F1 and most other types of motorsports by now. A very good evening to everyone who's joined us already. Goes for a couple of the drivers. I can see Martin there early in chat with the first comments. I can see you didn't put the first like, Martin. What the An evening to Bambi, to Houdini, who's now changed his PSN to match his YouTube account. The man formerly known as Gugas, our Portuguese friend and a longtime NES veteran. And welcome to CJ as well as the SRP guys. That's of course Wakesy. We're watching the Porsche 919 of Jim. He's making his way around the Porsche curves, funnily enough, or just coming into the Porsche curves. And now onto the Corvette corner, or Virage Corvette, and down towards the final bit of the track, and that is of course the... Well, that's not this one, but the next, just to avoid any type of confusion. Jim, of course, as anyone else here on the outlap. And let's have a look at who's on the grid. Oh, you still made it, Martin. Good job. Good job. Then I won't hold any grudges against you. We, of course, have the witty professor of Joe, that is Joe of the Fire, racing for Sugar Rush Performance here tonight, I think. Or at least that's some kind of joint venture with this English wine gum livery. It's a brilliant one, I have to say. Kudos on you, kudos to you, Wake. I guess it's you who made that livery. It looks spot on, it's brilliant, I like it. Also representing for Porsche, as we saw just before, it is Jim, the AM driver, who has been with us for the entirety of Season 4 in the NES. Gr1 Bandit is in the M-powered Supra. A bit of a joke, I guess. Evening, Tron. The race is gonna be 18 laps plus the formation lap, so that accounts to about 1 hour of racing, and that'll then be total length of the race, including the very lengthy formation lap here at La Sarthe. It's gonna be around 1 hour and 10 minutes altogether. Gr1 Bandit, as mentioned, he's in the Supra. Then we have a newcomer to the series, of course, Gugas. As I mentioned before, he's not a newcomer, but he's in the Toyota TSO 50. Pescarolo, very much though a newcomer to the NES, and I'm quite sure he's gonna be a face that you're gonna be seeing more of in connection with the NES. Looks to be a signee for the 5th season already, and managed to losing my headphones here. Just a little microphone management here. Oh yeah, and I promised that I would have the race radio up on Discord. I haven't managed to do that yet. I should probably get into that. Just a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I can probably, of course, I should be able to multitask in the meanwhile. And we can go on through with the grid here. Mick Anthony who's some of you who've, if any of you's been watching the monthly Group 4 races that I have been taking part of, and trials as well, actually, in some of them, you might have noticed Mick Anthony. He's sprung across. He's joined his friend Gentleman Racing. He's racing for Porsche here tonight in the 911 RSR. He's making his way down to the second chicane on that legendary Mulsanne straight. And speaking of Gentleman Racing, in another 911 RSR, the same livery that we saw him compete in at the final round of the NES, here at the same place where he was very unlucky to lose the race later on after having a very strong lead and being on that one stop. He was looking for a race victory. He was heading for one as well. Wasn't going to be that way. Of course, we have Martin Favhuisen here doing a ceremonial drift as we take a look. And the Cam Hatch Riva Racing representing Toyota here today, or tonight, is probably a more precise way to say it. Evening Phil Denty, or just Phil. Feel like I say your entire name every time and should be familiar enough by now that it should just be Phil. I hope you're okay with that. The best livery competition. Oh, that's a good shot. I'd say the car of either Martin's car that we're looking at right now. I think they always have a touch of class to him. Whatever designs he come up with for the Cam Hatch Riva Racing always looks very nice indeed. Wake CU and Joe of the Fire in their matching 911 and 919s. Sponsored by, it is of course Sugar Rush Performance with some English wine gums here. That would probably be my pick. Although this one is a livery we've seen before from Gugas. It's very, very pretty indeed. The Martini livery on the Toyota TS050, good looking. And evening to the man formerly known as VRS Stick, the man who is now known as TSR Stick after the PS4 or PlayStation Net name changes became available. But evening to you, Stick. It's nice to have you along, and I hope you are enjoying the last that is left of the weekend here this Sunday evening, and a new week is dawning upon us soon. But first, we will have racing. Also, a pretty fresh face to the NES here. Bu Fushidara, who gets it all wrong on the pit entrance there. Certainly not what he wants to see on the way in. Probably hadn't picked up some damage here. Joe of the Fire, let's go into the qualifying, by the way. We are halfway through the qualifier session. Joe of the Fire, quickest so far with a 3 minutes 19.2. And that is certainly an impressive pace here. He's up on Jim with a bit over a second. Martin Favhuisen seeming to have had some kind of problem there on his first lap. And I'd say that the same goes for the last couple of LMP runners. Well, we aren't really having them yet, are we? So far only 3 runners in the LMP field. Can that really be? Well, that is true. Mind you that we did have actually a full grid of signees plus an extra couple of, of reserves. It just goes to prove that indeed racing can never have too many reserves. Oh, Stick, my man, am I pleased and happy on your way, and also a little proud, can I say, of just being involved with it then. Of TSR now being an official team and business. Well, On my part, I can certainly say that we here at Have the Race Gone are very, very pleased with our partnership with TSR. I think it has provided us with some magnificent racing to show to the people, to the viewers, and for that we are, of course, grateful. And we're looking forward, as always, to much, much more of the same in the future. Now, Apple being forced to chat here on his qualifying lap, that's certainly bad luck. Joe of the Fire still in that provisional pole position. Jim still second, and Martin in that third LMP car. Still only 3 LMP1s, 2 Porsches and a Peugeot. And you could in turn say that that's kind of Le Mans-y, if you wish. And what a legendary place. What a legendary circuit. And what a special circuit as well. You wouldn't really find any other motor racing circuit in the world like this one. And of course, especially when thoughts to how the Mulsanne Straight was back in the days. Back when there was no chicanes. And the utter insanity of this kink at 400 kilometers an hour. And then that bump that has also been flattened further down. The bump, as we see Jimmy's coming to the bump right about now. This is exactly where it was that Mark Webber who took flight in the CLK GTR. I feel like it was actually a couple of those drivers. Very dramatic scenes. Wasn't the only GT1 cars to take flight. There was just something about the aerodynamics of that particular generation of top-tier GT cars. The Merc took flight indeed, and it did it on several occasions and did pull out of the race indeed. And that is actually the last we have seen of Mercedes at Le Mans. They haven't returned at any point, which is which says quite a lot. I think they took a great deal of embarrassment. And it was indeed Mark Webber. Thanks, Hippie Head. And good evening to you, or it's not. Of course, in Australia, it's not exactly evening. I guess it's not. Well, I guess what it's noon for you. But anyway, have a happy Sunday from here. I hope you have a bit more in front of you than we do here. Or is it really late? I'm getting all confused by time zones. Don't worry, I'll stop. Oh, you're in England. Okay. It goes back to the Saubermerc. Do you remember what year, Phil? Are you that sharp on it? By the way, Jim, he's gonna make another lap, and he's probably gonna make another 2 laps actually, and you would expect the same, not the same to go for Martin. He's exiting the pits. He still haven't put in a lap that he can be content with, I think. He's far off the pace of Joe of the Fire so far. He is gonna make his way around for a single shot. That would be pressure on for him. Oh, you just hang around with the Aussie boys. Alright, Hippiehead. Well, sorry for making the connection like that, even if it was wrong. That looks like another LMP. No, that's not another LMP. That's the LMP of Joe of the Fire here, as Fushidara brings it into the first chicane and the gravel trap. His officially liveried 911 there. And here is our provisional leader here in qualifying. No one has really managed to get far. It is the witty professor. It is Joe of the Fire in that lovely Sugar Rush performance Porsche. CJ is not on track. Evening to Nilse as well. Nice to have you along, Nilse. As always, it is a pleasure. I hope you've been enjoying your weekend. And of course, that goes to everyone watching here tonight. Stick, CJ is not on track. CJ is actually here in chat with us, if I'm not completely mistaken, or he was at least earlier. CJ unfortunately not being able to race here tonight. It would be funny to see CJ in the Porsche 919. That'd be something that I'd personally find a little funny. So let's have a look, actually, because something we haven't touched upon at all pretty much is the GT class. It's Gr1 Bandit provisionally on pole position in his Toyota. It's in front of the Porsche 919. I'm gonna screw that up a couple of times. I can say that already now. Of course, the Porsche 911 RSR of Wake CU. In front of another Porsche that is Gentleman Racing, then Toyota of Apple in the Nuke Shot car. Another Porsche, Mick Anthony, then Toyota with the Pescarolo. Then it's, of course, Gugas, who hasn't been able to set a time yet. I've been talking about this like there's only 3 LMP ones. There is, of course, 4, but Gugas, as I call him, he is, of course, now Houdini Myers, and I shall call him aptly so Houdini Myers. John's on vacation, that's why Bambi knows it all. Evening, Bambi, as well. Radish fans, where you're at, show the peasants some love. And big up Jack Wilkinson on the cam. So this is actually the flying lap from Houdini. He will have one more shot at a flyer, if I'm not completely mistaken. Oh, yes, he will. He'll be around the 19-minute mark as he crosses the line. And on single lap pace, I would expect him to be up there with Joe of the Fire, being able to put in around those 319s, 320s. Traditionally, where we've seen Mr. Myers here struggle is perhaps more on the side of consistency. Even though he's, when he gets it working, he's put up some brilliant races. He's taken a couple of victories in Season 4 as well in the AM class. Knocking on the door for promotion, but of course the superb performance in that class, and both in the split, then the AM split, of course, and in both classes in turn from Nilseman will probably see him promoted. But in turn for Season 5, it also looks like it's going to be purely down to the placement tests that the drivers are going to be going through. There's a lot of new stuff coming to the Nuke Shot Endurance Series for Season 5, and it's certainly something we'll be touching on a lot more in the near future as we are getting closer to season start. Here comes Houdini Myers. It's a 326, so still somewhat some way down. He's in third at the moment. What about Martin Faversen? He's carrying a penalty, and this is going to be his final attempt. And he didn't manage to better it that last time around. And Stick Radish is Radish and Peasant is just one of a couple of many names and nicknames that we have for our lovely organizer and good friend, hardworking of Apple, of Nuke Shot Motorsports fame indeed. So we're into the final couple of seconds here of the qualifying session. Let's see, Joe of the Fire, this is going to be his final lap. Jim, he's not going to make any more flying laps. Gugas or Houdini, he is carrying one here. So Gr1 Bandit, he's called it a day. He's 0.4 of a second up on Wake. So given the length of Circuit de la Sarthe, that's certainly not a lot of a gap there. It's almost 2 seconds down to Mick Anthony. Pescarolo further 1.5 seconds down there. Bufu Shidara not really having set a fast lap. And the same goes, I think, for Apple and the gentleman formerly known as Waddles, that is Dynamic Carbon, the organizer of the DRL, the Dynamic Racing League, that you can catch live on Saturdays, if I'm not completely mistaken, at the moment with Apple at the rudder. And it's actually some quite high quality stuff they're managing to pull together, so I can only advise everyone to check out Dynamic Racing League. Now, Joe of the Fire is looking to improve upon his time, and he is doing just that at the moment. He's purple by 0.3 on his way through Indiana Nash. He's now on his way down towards the Porsche curves, so not a lot of lap left. So Phil, 1989 for that Merc Sauber incident. So that was actually the C9 that we all know and love from these racing games. I was just thinking whether it was the C9 or the C11, because they were actually a little bit different. And the C9, of course, the Group C Merc that runs away with most of the fame, but some of the other cars are epic as well. And definitely and generally, can I just say that I have big level of admiration for those drivers being able to tame those Group C machines. It's a fantastic period of motor racing. Here is Joe of the Fire, goes into the 318s with a 318.8, and that's certainly going to cement his place on pole position. I'm not saying too much too soon here. It's over for Martin Favers, and he's going to be last in class. And Houdini here is the only one who can still... Oh, that just shipping him back to the pits. He were nowhere near. So anyone still running, actually, that's gonna be Bu Fushidara for a final lap here. Getting it a little touchy through the Porsche curves. So, see if he's gonna be able to improve upon his time. I certainly think he is. He very much is, but he keeps that 7th place overall, and that's of course that's not third on grid. Well, I'm not quite sure. Apple might be in front, and of course Gugas isn't on track yet as well. So we need everyone through turn 1 or through sector 1, through that first timing up through Tete Rouge, of course, to have all the laps registered here. The top 4, the LMP runners, Joe of the Fire taking pole position in front of Jim with a good lap there to get in within almost 1.5 seconds. That's pretty close indeed. Houdini for Toyota. So it's Porsche 1-2, it's Toyota on the second row for the LMPs. Then it's a little bit more of a mix between the GTs with GRM Bandit on pole position in front of the Porsche of Wake CU. Also Gentleman Racing, Mick Anthony as well. So 3 Porsches in behind there. Then Pescarolo, Bu Fushidara, Dynamic, and Apple. And they're all going to be in behind. So, not a lot of time left until we have the race start. Joe being asked if he can please put a couple of sandbags on his car. Well, we'll see. It's a police raid. Yeah, you heard that, those sirens. Actually, rather dramatically, actually, I could say that part of Copenhagen where I'm living at is home to some riots today, or has been home to some riots today. We've had unrest, civil unrest, for it to be entirely true. Because I'm not gonna go all into politics, but I'll say I will never support racism, and I will never support any racist, and I will be somewhat proud to say that because a racist came to my part of a town, everybody got so pissed off they wanted him to tell him that we didn't really like him here, and that turned out to be something quite violent. So that's the story about why there are some police sirens in the background. And to anyone thinking, well, Denmark, that's like a first world country, isn't it? Yes, it is. And you probably wouldn't expect these types of... But of course, Europe happens here all the time. France, all these places. Back to the racing. Martin, it wasn't exactly what you were looking for, I suppose, for this qualifying session, but best of luck for the race. It is a long race here at La Sarthe. It is about an hour of racing, so plenty of time to pull in that extra time, and plenty of time to make amends of things, I think. Enjoy your pizza rolls, Bambi. I wish I could have one right now. Martin, you know what you're supposed to, you know. I've been cooked on 2 beers in the sun. I can only say that it can really cook you 2 beers in the sun. So ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We're just about to have the race started. I think the drivers are just having a chance to go for that final wee break. And yeah, Phil, right? Don't don't be Martin. You can do whatever you like. I ain't your father. I ain't your Darth Vader. So Joe of the Fire being as fast as that livery looks good. Look at it. Of course, it's hard to see. That's better. See if we can keep the car from ghosting out. It's probably gonna happen anyways when he... That's, of course, when the flag rules are on, we have cars ghosting out. The 3... Oh, I was just about to say the 3 Porsches lighting up. There are no 3 Porsche 919s. It's 2 Porsches and a Toyota. And indeed, Bambi, it's qualifying here at La Sarthe. It pretty much counts until you hit the Mulsanne for the first time. Of course, you could be clear of all that scrapping going into to Dunlop. Traditionally a place where things can't go wrong. And the same can be said for overtaking attempts through Tete Rouge, which is certainly not a place to go too wide, at least not at full speed. That requires a lot of respect and a lot of respectful commitment from both drivers, and they need to be committed to losing a lot of time, and I mean seconds, to the drivers in front, and people usually are not. So early incidents are often aplenty here at La Sarthe. Of course, we're hoping to get everyone cleanly away and let the racing decide rather than the incidents. Who do you think is whining? Houdini, tell us, since you don't like whining people, it seems like you're commenting that someone is whining. At least we have something here, Phil, to keep us entertained. Oh, it's... I don't like winning people. Predicting a crashing Brit. Well, Jim or Joe? Is it Jim or Joe? Is it Jim or Joe? Will it be Jim or Joe? Will it be both of them? Crashing Brits. Well, it's certainly gonna help you along the way, Houdini. I have to say, a little bit surprised, I am at least, to see the Porsche dominate the Toyota like this on 1 lap pace. I think we've seen before, at least in the NES, that the Toyota has insane straight line performance. We saw it here at the Sarthe. We also saw it at the Tokyo race at the Tokyo Expressway. That make it Brits? Yeah, it would very. The joke is now right there, waiting to be fired, Phil. I've put it in the magazine. I'm just waiting for one of the Brits to go wrong. We can make the Brits. Yeah. So there is pole sitter in the GT class, as mentioned. Gr1 Bandit in the BMW Supra. Look at that. The M-Power Toyota with the nostrils. It looks hideous. But in a good way. You know, I don't put fingers in between Bandit when I'm judging liveries, but this one certainly isn't going to win any beauty contest with the little bits of Hitler moustache, if we can call it so. Of course, I know it's not meant to be that, it's just a BMW, but I guess there's a little bit of a... It has a little thing to do with each other, though. So anyways, I will not rant on about Germans or Germany. Let's go on. Wake CU. Look at that livery. It matches Joe's car. It's a Sugar Rush, guys. I love you too. And it's... I just think those liveries are brilliant. And Phil, I don't know if you've had enough time to have a look at all those liveries to judge who is the winner of the livery competition for this week. But as mentioned, Sugar Rush boys, Porsches are up there in... You think it's ugly? I think it's beautiful. It's ugly aesthetics. And evening, Marcus. 4 minutes time indeed, as Houdini rightly says on the spot. Evening, gentlemen. Racing. Telling people to donate. Well, you can if you really want to. We actually have a Patreon link at the bottom of the description if you feel like throwing a bit in our hat, so to say. Of course, only if you're really, really feeling like it. Anyway, we should be close to race start by now. And that doesn't mean that we're not like 10 minutes away from a race start, because that formation lap around 13 kilometers here at La Sarthe, it takes time. Oh, Martin, that's gonna give you good muscles in the arms. Well, I certainly appreciate that. It goes with a big thank you from me. And of course, a very warm welcome, a very good evening to everyone who is joining us here. You're joining us pretty much at the right time. There's a 10-minute window from now on, pretty much, and till the end of the formation lap, till we get the real action underway. And of course, everyone, I hope you've been enjoying your weekends out there. And I don't know if it's only us Danes that are lucky and blessed with it, but next week, personally for me, it's only going to be 2 working days, and then it's going to be almost an entire week of Easter vacations. I'm certainly looking forward to it. And you'll have me excused if I'm a little bit sniffy, so to say, but I've been sick over the last bits of last week and over the weekend as well. I'm just finally getting over it here today, but trying my best not to not to sniff all the time. You could make a lot of fun out of that sentence in itself, just taken out of context. I just realized that. 4 days to you, Houdini. Well, it's better than 0, which is what some are getting, but work for a company that also I think everybody also enjoys and appreciates their time off. And spare time is certainly something that, well, I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, at least, I really appreciate having time off. I really appreciate being able to sit back, kick back, and relax and do whatever I feel like. And that's I certainly know that, or I guess that someone would disagree, some of the workaholics out there. But even though I do enjoy my work a lot, I also enjoy not being at work. So we are getting close to it by now. The 4 LMP1s and the remaining of the field, of course, GTE cars. And I say GTEs because I feel like this Toyota Supra Gazoo racing concept is kind of a GTE spec racer with that huge diffuser, with the number indicators on the side there, real GTE spec style. Oh, a Boo Houdini rivalry boiling up. Well, Martin, that would mean battling across the classes. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a look at the starting grid and our field out for the formation lap. 13.7 kilometers around the Circuit de la Sarthe, 2 classes. Oh, and just don't make any contact. And they're off for the formation lap. Porsche, row 1, Toyota, row 2, and then in the GTs, it's Toyota on pole position, but then followed by 3 Porsches, and then a bunch of Toyotas in behind. Well, Phil, I thought about that, but first of all, I really don't think my bosses are listening. I think your general bike messengers don't really give too much of a damn about SimRacing, except for me and Traus. And then, well, having a physically demanding job, like being a bike messenger, think it's pretty okay to feel like that it's cool to be at work, but it's also cool not to, because it's a little tiring at times, and it's also rewarding at times. And when the weather is great and it's not too windy and everything is just right, it is a blessing to be at work. When the rain is pouring down and the winds are picking up, and well, not always as much. So here are the 4-car LMP field. Let's have a look with the GTs. As I mentioned, it's GRM Bandit in front of 3 Porsches there. And I did expect the Toyotas to have the advantage here, and that actually goes for both classes because they are the top speedier cars, so to say. But it isn't all about top speed here on Le Mans, because you also have to, or at Sarthe, as the track is actually called. This is not the race Le Mans, but it's raced at the Circuit de Sarthe. Anyways, I would expect the GT Toyotas to be up there, and they are, of course, in front position, but could also be down to the drivers, the quality of Wake CU, Gentleman Racing, and Mick Anthony. GRM Bandit putting in a very good lap there indeed to put his car on pole. Of course, would be nice if we could have some kind of multi-class system implemented into GT Sport. So the car would actually show GRM Bandit as leader of the GT class here, and he could have his class leading lights turned on and everything. So if you're listening, PD, give us just it's a small thing to put in the game, but a lot of us, especially us league racing folks, would really appreciate it. And I know a lot of the more serious GT Sport gamers also have been having a lot of fun with the multi-class racing in the Best of British series that's organized by a certain McLaren, Mr. Lewis Bentley of the Lazarus Racing team. It's certainly something you should go check out if you're getting bored of me and getting tired of listening to my voice here. Some absolute quality racing on display there, the Best of British series. Some of the races have been broadcast by Tijni, actually the king of drama himself. And then, of course, plenty of live streaming, onboard streaming opportunities from those races. And mind you, I'm not saying this because I have any kind of deal going on with them, but I watched some of these races myself, and they were absolutely fantastic. And as well, Bambi, the VRR, of course. Why didn't I think of that? Is it actually... I've been thinking, because is there any coverage of the VRR? It seems like it's a well-established series, and certainly should have some kind of coverage to it. Those races are long as well, aren't they? It's like 400, 500, 600 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers, stuff like that. Evening to Max Kempenart. It's a pleasure to have you along. And of course, as always, rooting for Dutch favorite, that is Maarten Vijverhuizen. No Mika here on the grid today, though he was signed up. So only a single Dutchman, but a Belgian as well to cheer for in the GTs in the form of Wake CU. And that will please the Dutchies, I think, to know that he is indeed a Flemish Belgian. And that is, of course, somewhat closer to a Dutchman than a Walloon would be. Don't tell your mate to go away, Maarten. I understand that stuff. Nothing flies under my nose here. Ga weg. What kind of thing is that to say to your mate? What kind of a way is the... Yeah. Go give it some gas. I'd say that is a good idea as well. So as I mentioned, this is a long formation lap. We have the GT field just about at the Mulsanne corner, which many people think it's the slowest part of the track because of that huge braking zone. But of course, the slowest corner here is indeed the even tighter, and also just in terms of road width on exit, very, very tight and narrow Anage corner. That's a good one, Phil. That is a good one. Let's have a look with the LMPs. How far are they? Speaking of Arnage, here is the witty professor. It's Jim, it's Mr. Myers, and a certain Martin Pfeiffersen. There's actually, I think, Houdini getting a wheel in the grass. Now some frantic tire warming. And of course, you do have to keep those tires hot on these formation/warm-up laps. And especially when the track is long and straight for as much as the time as it is here at Sarthe. So this is, of course, we're seeing why. And the reason we're seeing these amounts of tire warming. Perhaps I should have a word with the VRR organizers about broadcasting some of the races if they don't have any problem. That's worth thinking about, Bambi. And Indianapolis, favorite corner? Well, for me, it's between... I don't know, it's between Tete Rouge and, yeah, Indy as well. I think that feeling when you just nail Tete Rouge and get on the power at just the right time and you use all of the track and just know that you really get a good run. It feels good in retrospect as well, all the way down to the first chicane. But... we are, of course, talking about at least one of my favorite tracks in the world. It's special, and it always also produces some special racing, especially when it's multi-class like we are today. Our 4 LMPs are coming up to the formation zone that is through the 4 chicanes here. And in a couple of moments' time, we're gonna have the race getting underway. It's Joe of the Fire. He's going to be the one to let him go, and I think he's going to go waiting for a second here as there they go, and the LMPs are underway. Down towards turn 1 and then up towards Dunlop, and it is Houdini Myers on the inside. Joe gets a big slide on. Martin goes all the way over the inside, and Jim wipes out here. That's poor luck indeed. Oh, a lot of drama. Right from the off, Joe of the Fire with a big slide on his way through Dunlop, but less of an accident than what happened to the other drivers, with everybody else getting completely out of shape there. And that's a good lead to be carrying here on the first lap. But getting mixed up here with the 2 cars here, because Toyota up into 2nd and 3rd position. And was there contact between the 2? There might have been. We'll have another look at it. See if we can catch whatever happened at the LMP start. And we are on board with Martin Pfeiffersen. And we'll go back to catch the GT start in a moment. Oh, he's on the outside of Jim there. That was a little bit sketchy indeed. Talking about the GT start, it's just about to happen. It's Gr1 Bandit now with the power. He has the power to control when they go. Here it is. Green, green, green for the GT class. And it's a brilliant start from the American Pescarolo, who's up into 2nd position. It's Wake 3rd. It's Gentleman Racing in 4th position. And further down, it's a... Oh, gets sent off completely there. Who was that? That's Dynamic. That's Carbon. The man formerly known as Waddles going all straight in Dunlop there. Poor luck for him indeed. With Martin Pfeiffersen, we'll have to see if he had some kind of damage from that early incident. But no, he is all good, and that's a pleasure to see indeed. Gr1 Bandit getting away brilliantly from the start, and Toyota now running 1st and 2nd in the GTs. Wake 3rd with Gentleman Racing and Mick Anthony switching places, though, side by side. Down towards the first chicane, then it's off Apple in behind. It's in the 6th position in class at the moment. And then in 7th, it's Boo Fushidara. In 11th, it's Dynamic Carbon, who's at a proper bad start. I have no idea what actually happened to him. So here is Joe of the Fire, having completed the first lap of racing, or coming down to complete the first lap of racing out of 18 here today, including, of course, not including the formation lap. Here it is. Good lap time for him as well, with a 3 minutes 23. Not bad at all. He's put in a 7-second advantage down to Houdini. Evening to Rampage Racing, and evening to the man formerly known as Ares as well, a shiny Swablu. So is it shiny? Is it Swablu? Is it blue? Is it swap? I don't know. Rampage Racing, indeed it is. Let's have a look with it. It's the car of Pescarolo, and let's go on board because he is right on the tail of his Toyota buddy, his Toyota teammate that is Gr1 Bandit. He's going around the outside on the way down to Indianapolis. And I think that slipstream run was just about enough to take him through. It certainly was. And I think we're also seeing what I mentioned before, that the Toyotas do have the straight line speed here, because it seems in turn that Wake CU is having a little bit of trouble keeping up here. Pescarolo, who started somewhat down, he was down in 4th or 5th on the grid. He's now in the lead in the GT class. Brilliant opening laps for his sake. A shiny Swooplu. Okay. Thanks. So racing just as clean as his livery is here. Pescarolo leading on the first lap for the GTs. Let's have a look back with Joe of the Fire, who's now almost put Houdini Myers out of sight. It's almost 8 seconds. He's still gaining on his way down the Mulsanne straight. He's carrying some serious speed, and it's not something that the 919 is necessarily known for. He must have the perfect setup, I'm thinking, for the car. He's absolutely flying at the moment. There's Houdini with a small penalty. He's got 3 seconds down to Martin Faversen, holding on there in 3rd position. Doesn't seem to be, sketchy exit there from the Mulsanne corner from Martin. And then Jim catching up to the Dutchman. Man, I can understand that, Brandon. I think it looked like contact from behind. And could that be Boo, who also seemed to have some issue there into Dunlop? I don't know, but the Brandon, of course, is Dynamic Carbon. And anyways, I can understand that. I can very much, just to make sure that it didn't sound like can't. I do understand that you're gutted. Certainly super bad luck here as Martin Faversen gets it all wrong through an arse. And let's see what happened to him. Let's see if we can just catch a second look. Slides extra, and he hits the wall there. Oh my. That's certainly not what he wanted to be, because that's guaranteed to be heavy damage. Not even that heavy, not even engine damage, but that's a lucky escape not to pick up engine damage from such a collision. Of course, suspension and aero is gonna hinder him a lot. Martin Faversen, one of the favorites for today's race, is having a tough time here early stages. Back with the GTs, it's still too close to call, too close to split apart between Pescarolo and Gr1 Bandit, as Martin pits in to fix his damage. And Wake CU, he is 3 seconds down. No, I'm sorry, he's only 2.2 seconds down. But really see him losing time on those straight bits. And there are quite a bit of straight bits here at Sarthe. Joe of the Fire, it's now a massive 12 point. Well, it's actually now all the way up to 13 seconds. And look at this now, Jim is getting closer and closer to Houdini in front. And I think he actually got the exit upon him here. He seems to be gaining and gaining. Let's go on board with the Englishman here. Though it does seem like Houdini has his straight line speed in order, because he's not losing time really to Jim, at least not down towards the first chicane as we were watching. We're back with the GT leader, it's Pescarolo. In second, it's GRM Bandit. He's picked up a second since last time we checked in. It's the Belgian Wake CU for Sugar Rush Performance. Of course, GRM Bandit running for Gr1 Motorsports. And look here through... as it's... is Bandit getting all out of shape through an arch. And that leaves Wake all within the slipstream. Let's have another look at that situation. It was actually, I think, Pescarolo in turn who was the first one to go out of shape there. And Wake CU is right back into contention. The Porsche, the stronger of the two, through the corners here, so I'd expect him to have an easy time to be able to hang on and maybe even get the run down towards the Ford chicane. Phil, what are the Supras like on tire wear? I don't think they are excellent, to be honest. I've tried driving the Supra. I haven't tried messing around with the setup. It does handle like a bit of a bow, but it's very tail happy. It's very difficult to get on the power early in that car, but it does have its grunt, and also seems to be struggling a bit with understeer compared to the 911. So would say it's going to struggle on tire life just because it's struggling on grip through corners, and that in turn it's going to mean that it's harder on the tires. So that's my call. Of course, we will see how that pans out throughout the race with the pace and everything here. Pescarolo now slightly running away. And Jim having overtaken Gugas or Houdini Myers there for second position. So Porsche, yet again, first and second. We are back to how we were at the start of the race. And a good evening to everyone who's joined us here. 10 minutes of racing in, pretty much. Oh, Pescarolo. Pescarolo's all the way down in 8th position now. What happened? And here we get a good glimpse that's out of the S's down towards Tete Rouge. Oh, that's poor luck for him. Must have made some kind of mistake. Either that or he has made some kind of contact. I'm sure he must have picked up some kind of damage. Let's have a look what it is for him. It's front left suspension and front aero as well. So that's not going to help him at all. Gentleman Racing, I think he's picked up a little bit of a penalty here. He has 0.7 of a second. So hard not to do here with the FIA track limits on here for Sarthe. They are stringent, to say the least. But poor luck for Pescarolo in the GT. And that was the leading... That, of course, gives the lead. That wasn't the leading Toyota, because the leading Toyota in the GT class is now GRM Bandit. Closely followed, indeed, by Wake CU. So all to play for within the GTs still. Even though Joe of the Flyer, he's already picking up on lap traffic here. Let's see if he makes his way through. Certainly does so safely between the first couple of cars here. And he's up to pass. That's Mick Anthony. And then it's Wake and GRM Bandit next up to be passed. Further down the order in what is effectively 7th in class, it's Fushidara getting caught by the Toyota of Houdini. And then in 6th in the GTs, it's Fable. He's getting passed by Jim as we speak, on his way down towards Indianapolis. Gentleman Racing 5th. That's a strong battle between himself and Pescarolo. Pescarolo holding on to it. Only just through Indianapolis. Feel like that's worth catching another look at here. As they went side by side on corner entrance here. Takes some guts to hold it on the outside. And he does as well. So good job there. Let's see Houdini is dissatisfied with something. He's picked up some damage. Let's see if there's something we can... if it's something we can catch. Joe of the Fire, the witty professor, is proving to be too much of a challenge for the LMP opposition. He's now leading by 20 seconds already. And he knows that he can just take it easy, take it steady, keep it steady. And it's gonna be good for him. Here is Gr1 Bandit. He is still defending from Wake CU. Those two still no more than a couple of meters, a car length or two in between them. Oh, that's Gr1, and that's Bandit. Of course, he's missing the apex. He's getting a bad exit, and that might in turn just open the door for Wake CU as Jim is coming up to lap these two GTs. And let's see how patient he can be. Oh, he gets in between, and that's it's gonna save Gr1 Bandit for now. Half a second in between these two. Let's see who gets the superior exit. Certainly Wake CU very close here. Close enough that I think he should be able to make a move. We're on board with the Belgian. The Porsche 919. There it is. This is of course the Porsche 911 RSR. And here Wang Cam time. We're on board with Gr1 Bandit. The battle for the lead in the GTE class. Oh, they're getting quite close indeed. Here's Houdini also coming up to lap the two. And then in behind here, very much also still inside touching distance, it's Mick Anthony. He's done a very good job of just keeping it steady so far. He's avoided the worst bits and bobs of battling, and he's not had any incidents. He's still within 5-6 seconds of the class leaders. Actually within 5 seconds of class leader indeed. So still very much within contention. Gentleman Racing is a little bit down. And then the two Toyotas of Apple, Fushidara, and then Pescarolo all the way down in last position, having rejoined after what I think was a pit stop. It is of course a pit stop he's had because he's on an outlap now. Race leader Joe of the Fire, or LMP class leader, he's doing a strong job so far. It's very steady indeed. It's now 7.1 seconds between Houdini and Jim. Seems that gap is closing at the minute. And just as I say that, it opens up again. Oh, and Wake is in the lead. Wake has passed Gr1 Bandit, and now we have Porsche leading both classes. And it was even before on the way down to Indianapolis, probably from that Mulsanne corner exit. So Wake CU now leading the GTs, and he's looking to put some time between himself and Gr1 Bandit. No doubt he's going to need a little bit of space to hold out for long, faster bits of the track here. Houdini is entering the pits. Let's see if it's because of damage. It might just be. I'm actually quite sure it is there to his right rear suspension. I'm thinking that it's just causing him too much instability. He's having to do something about it. Poor luck for both Toyotas. Of course, Jim having bad luck on pretty much lap 1, turn 1 through the Dunlop chicane. Right at the opening of the race as he spun. He managed not to pick up any damage, as far as I'm aware at least. Doesn't seem like it, doesn't look like it as well. and he certainly didn't. He's still running strongly. He's now in second. And he has that second place secured by quite a margin indeed. Who crashed into you? Bad luck indeed, Gugus. Or bad luck indeed, Houdini. I'm just having to adjust to changing names and such. Now back with our GT leaders, as it is very much Houdini making his way up to lap. These two guys still fighting it out as GRM Bandit is closing in. He's in the slipstream and he's quickly closing that gap. He might actually even be able to lunge in for it here at the end of the first bit of the Mulsanne, straight into the first chicane. He thinks about it. He has a look. He thinks twice. Porsche strongest on exit, but with the BMW firmly... the BMW even fooled me there, the Supra. The Supra firmly within slipstreaming distance. And the race lead will change yet again in the GT class as GRM Bandit jumps ahead on the way down to the second chicane. Of course, if you like what we do here at Have the Race Gone, throw us a like on the video, and if you want to keep up to date with what we do here on the channel and all that goes with it, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you get notified whenever our broadcasts go up. Wake CU is now going to be pressing into Mulsanne corner, but it's going to be no more than a thought this time around. He's going to be looking for the exit. I think it's Martin Vijversen who's coming up to lap. It's the last of the LMPs who hasn't lapped the leading GT cars here. And Martin is 40-some seconds, I think, down. He's actually a minute and 20 seconds down on current race leader Joe of the Fire, class leader as well. So that's almost half a lap down. Certainly not the race for Martin Vijversen, but in turn everything can change very quickly here at Sarthe. It only takes an accident in the wrong place of the track for that gap to diminish. So of course Martin here, he just has to keep on going at it, keep on hammering on, and keep on believing that something will be possible. As in turn, we're not even halfway through yet. So still a lot of racing left to do. Wake CU now having taken the lead in the GTs. So this battle is really proving to be one that just gives quite a lot actually here. This is a situation where Bandit has to be a little careful with the dirty air. Although these GT cars, of course, the dirty air not being as prominent as with the higher downforce cars, but still it is a thing when you get too close to the car in front. Just see that cornering ability of the Porsche, making it possible for Wake to just keep that little bit of extra speed through the Porsche curves. And it would be sad indeed to see a Toyota being stronger than a Porsche through the Porsche curves. There is still justice in the world after all. Wake CU leading them out upon another lap. And still there in the background, third place in class in his 919. We haven't seen too much of him because he's just been going around doing his best to just keep his pace about him. He's just about 5'6". So Mick Anthony, he's still very much within contention. 4 seconds from him down to the next 911. That's Gentleman Racing. And then the Toyotas of Off Apple. And then Fushidara, but Off Apple. 8 seconds down on Gentleman Racing, so he's not completely outside of contention. Though Fushidara 20 seconds down there. And then Pescarolo, who's running so well until he picked up that damage. He's now running last in class, but of course he will have the advantage of a pit stop. If he can put in a good pace now, he might be able to regain some of those places he lost. Back with the LMP leader, it is Joe of the Fire still for Sugar Rush performances. Tonight, at least. Second place running the number 17 Porsche 919. And he's very much on an island as well. With around half a minute up to Joe of the Fire, 47 seconds down to Houdini. But mind you, both of the Toyota LMPs have had premature pit stops. Oh, as Houdini gets it all wrong. I'm very close to go very badly wrong there on the exit from Mulsanne. And with that, it's Martin Faversen who's now closing the gap up to his teammate. And of course, all honors to fight for between the two in the general point standings. The two manufacturers in between, it's not going to make the biggest of differences. As we're watching this battle, it's absolutely brilliant. Gr1 Bandit yet again taking the GT lead away from Wake CU, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth from lap to lap. Impossible to call it. This might very well come down to the fuel economy of these cars. And I would expect the 911 to be the stronger of the two, just because it is generally very strong on its fuel economy. It's comparatively pretty small, straight, of course, flat six. How could I say straight six? It's of course a flat six indeed. So Bandit doing a really good job of keeping the battle alive. Driving one of the best races of his NES career, at least so far. Some of the best we've seen. Let's hope it continues. Here into the Porsche curves, and importantly for him, he's leading Wake through, and that means the Belgian doesn't have the chance to extend his gap down through here and through turn or sector 1 as they cross the line. Oh, both of them getting a little squidgy there, and then through Corvette, and now it's down towards the Ford chicane. Let's see if he's close enough. I don't think he is. He most certainly is not close enough to make any kind of attempt here. Back with just checking on our leader, but he's still very comfortable, it seems, pushing that half a minute advantage. And now also getting close to the one-stop pit window as he slides through Indianapolis. Joe of the Fire. Looks like he's running very rearwards facing brake bias. At least from how the car was behaving there on turn-in. Came in a little too hot through Indy and then almost lost it. And that in turn is not what he is looking for, Joe of the Fire. Even though now would not be the worst of times to have an accident, because we are pretty much within that one-stop pit window. So back with that leading GT battle between Wake CU and the Porsche 911 RSR. Gr1 Bandit in the BMW Supra. It's of course a Toyota Supra. I like the joke though with this car. It's been a long-standing joke from Apple, making all kinds of cars into BMWs. And with this car, I think the joke just rises to another level. So still the pressure being applied from Wake CU. Certainly is close. And it's been like that. It's been like this or like that. I hate to decide. I really have to decide on which of these to choose. But it's been like this for the entirety of the race pretty much. Although we did see their Wake backing off in the braking zone into Malta and then getting a brilliant run on the exit. just finding the Toyota in the way on corner exit. Indeed, here is Wake CU. Tried to run up a little of his penalty there before, I think. But we saw both Pescarolo and GRM Bandit actually running away with it on the opening couple of laps. And then Wake CU just having eaten right back into it. And since he came back, he hadn't been outside of the slipstream of the Toyota. That is brilliant stuff from the Belgian, just keeping up with a car that seems to have a little more straight line speed. We're also seeing very, very patient driving from Wake here. Doing a good job of just coasting into the corners, making sure that he can focus on corner exits. All important for him, indeed. Now Mick Anthony has lost some time. And he's slowly just slipping out of touch. But for him, it's still status quo. With around 4 seconds down to Gentleman Racing in P4 in class. Now let's see if it's gonna be this time around for Wake CU into the Porsche or into the Ford chicanes. He's close this time around. He's very close indeed. The Belgian. Oh, and that's Bandit dipping into the pits. And Wake attempting the overcut. And that actually shows it pretty well, I think. GRM Bandit, not enough fuel, I'd say, with those 7 liters, 7%. It's 7%, of course. But I wouldn't say that that's enough to last him another lap. And in turn, I think he might not even need another lap, because they're going to be a couple of laps down on the LMPs, of course. So for the GTs, we're looking at, I think, 16 plus 1 instead of 18 plus 1. It's 15 or 16 plus 1 instead of 18 plus 1. Joe of the Fire, our race leader. Well, we're halfway through, and he's pitting in now. That's effectively lap 9 of 18 laps we're racing here. And we also have Bandit rejoining in 8th. I think Joe of the Fire is going to be pretty safe on rejoining the track in the lead. We have Jim pitting in as well here. And the gap down to the rest of the LMPs is comfortable for the 2 Porsches in the lead. Here is Wake CU. He's now leading the GT class. Of course, GRM Bandit having pitted a lap before. So we'll see if it's going to be the Belgian overcut, if it's going to be the American undercut. Would expect the Toyota to be able to put off a good lap here on fresher tires. Mick Anthony, of course, at the moment, it's Porsche 1, 2, 3. And then 4th in class after his pit stop is GRM Bandit. Actually, let's see the gap. Wake CU. So that's about 43 seconds between Bandit and Wake. We're gonna see how that develops over this lap as they head for the pits. I would imagine at least the Porsches coming in for the pits on this lap. So we have a look here with Martin Pfeiffersen. He's running status quo pretty much with Houdini in front. It's been around these 5-6 seconds for quite a while now between the 2 Toyotas. And given that they've both been struck by bad luck, they've come out pretty close to each other. Although they are still a long way down on our leaders. And I think what worse is for them, that they'll be forced into a 2-stop strategy from those earlier pit stops, those premature pit stops that they've had. And that's going to cost them even more time. Joe of the Fire setting the fastest lap in the LMP class with a qualifying worthy 3:19.2, and mind you, his pole time was a 3:18.7, so that's just half a second up on his qualifying time. Very consistent from the witty professor. Oh, as Martin has a huge moment, and that's of course from the exit of the second chicane. On board with the Dutchman to have a look at what almost went wrong. Just gets too much curb. And then he goes onto the slippery bit there on the wrong side of the track limits where you get the... and Googles probably shouldn't be typing in chat. I have to... And evening, Susu. Nice to have you along, and congratulations on the TRL signing. I have to say, it's very much deserved, as you've been an absolute beast for quite some time now. And I guess it was more a question of when than if. So congrats on that, and I hope you've been enjoying your weekend here. We have Gentleman Racing pitting in. He was absolutely dead shut out on his fuel there. He rejoins right around off Apple, though those two are very close all of a sudden after rejoining. And if Apple had his first pit stop already... Oh, Susu, you've got some strong teammates to run with also. Not that you didn't have that with TX3, but TRL, to be fair to everyone else, without being, without being unfair to everyone else, is kind of the biggest team, the strongest lineup. You'll be teammates with Max Verstappen and such. That is pretty cool. Anyways, let's go back with the GT battle lead. GR1 Bandit, he did pull off that undercut, and he's managed to put Wake CU out of the slipstream again. The Belgian is 2.5 seconds down. It's battle on here. Will he be able to close the gap on the speedier, at least top speedier Toyota? And then in behind there, it's Pescarolo, who after his early stop is almost all the way back into it. The question is now, will the American be able to continue and run the entire of the race on whatever fuel and tires he has on now? That is my only thought about this. If he can, he might still have a chance for a very good position here in the end. It's impressive stuff for him to even be in contention still, given that he was in early and prematurely with damage as well. Still, Joe of the Fire leading. He's leading by 36 seconds in the LMPs, down to Jim in the second of the two Porsche 919s, and then the two Toyotas of Houdini and Martin running third and fourth. We've just had both into the pits for their second pit stops. Oh, and here's Pescarolo getting past on Wake. And I don't recall Wake. No, he has been in the pits. He's put on those super softs, but quite sure that he was in front of Pescarolo before, so I think he must have had some kind of moment there, Wake, on his outlap. Guess we'll never know for sure, but it's Toyota 1-2 yet again now, with GR1 Bandit leading Pescarolo, then Wake CU for Porsche in third, in front of Mick Anthony of Apple in, what is effectively on the road the third of the Toyota GTs. He's running in fifth in class, then a Gentleman Racing in sixth for Porsche, and Fushidara in seventh for Toyota as well. It's a lonely life at the moment for Off Apple, I think. Oh, someone might... have gone off. Someone might have gone off. Oh, I'm not quite sure. Oh, it is Martin Favhuisen. He is... I think he's out of the race. I think he's called it a day. He parked the car here just at Indy on the outside. Perhaps this is the place of his final crash for today. Just couldn't take anymore. And I know that feeling very well. I've on an occasion or two just pitted the car into the garage. And then, yeah, just enough for today. But shame to see. So that's a Toyota list that's challenging for the win. Although it would take some kind of miracle, I'm quite sure, for Martin Favhuisen to make his return. Because he was a long way down on the LMP leaders. So Joe of the Fire still leading Jim and Houdini. And then it's Gr1 Bandit. Oh, he's pulled out a big gap. He's pulled out a gap of 6 seconds now down to Pescarolo. And that's 2 more seconds down to Wake CU. Having to think that the Belgian here has made some kind of mistake at some point. Because he's really lost time. And he's finding himself on the receiving end of this at the moment. He will have a hard time, I think. Left of racing, I suppose. 5-6 laps, so still not over, of course, but Wake CU, it's not looking as good as it did pre-pit stop for him. And I think it would have been the wise decision for him to follow in Gr1 Bandit. Because the Toyota does seem to be the speedier car, as I've mentioned earlier as well, on top speed. Parked it at 100 miles an hour. It's just a fuck it. So game on for Wake CU with a big challenge on his hands, and it's all changed back in Toyota favors here for the GTs as well. Actually, I think this all in all overall could make for some very interesting standings. Here's our GT leader. As mentioned before, Gr1 Bandit, he's now looking strong for a win here at Sarthe, because he's holding a 7-second advantage down to Toyota teammate Pescarolo, who's running second. Wake CU a couple of seconds further behind. Mick Anthony only 4 seconds down on Wake as well, so I am quite sure that that Wake has had some kind of problem here. Mick Anthony doing a good job of not being in the way. It's difficult sometimes when you're in the slower classes, not finding yourself to being in the way of the LMPs, but that was good work. Joe of the Fire comfortably leading by 40 seconds down to Jim, who yet in turn also comfortably leads Houdini by another close to about a minute. And the engineers have got that Toyota of Martin Favhuisen back out running, but he's a couple of laps down at the moment, so it's I think more a question of keeping himself in front of the GTs at the moment. Here is Pescarolo. So Pescarolo, well, there is the answer. He needed a second pit stop. He wasn't able to, and I think even if he had run on 100 fuel, I don't think he'd be able to one stop from such an early pit stop. And that, of course, is going to be saving grace, at least for now, for Wake CU, even though it's still going to be so far down on Gr1 Bandit that it's going to be difficult to close that gap. Of course, easier for Wake when he was in the slipstream of the Toyota in front here. Watching the pit stop of Pescarolo. How is he gonna do on exit? It's gonna be one of the only GTs to pit twice during this race. So let's see. It's gonna be all the way down in 10th position, I think. That's of course running overall, so that's 5th position in class, 6th position. So it's still Gr1 Bandit, and he is extending his lead. And just as I say that, he must have made some kind of mistake on the exit there from the first Mulsanne chicane, because Wake CU just cut 2 seconds off the deficit and still gaining on his way down here. And I'd have to say that if he keeps making mistakes like that, Gr1 Bandit, well, this is by no means over. He has to keep it steady. Oh, and just as I say that, he gets squidgy on the exit of the second chicane as well. And is he going to lose more time from that? He most certainly is. That might be an entire second as they come down the way down to the Mulsanne corner. Pit stop of Pescarolo. Well, that's left Mick Anthony in 3rd position. It's left Off Apple 4th, now running 2nd of the Toyotas. Gentleman Racing 5th, Pescarolo 6th in class, and Fushidara 7th at the moment. Still looking mighty stable for Joe of the Fire. 3:21.7 here on his last lap is by no means a bad lap at all. And there are 5 laps of racing left for Joe of the Fire here. 5 laps of racing at the moment. Ooh, almost gets it. Seemed to get a little unruly on his way into the first chicane, but no problem in the end. You can see Wake CU there in the background, 6.7 seconds down at the moment. And is the Belgian going to be able to close that gap on its way up through the Porsche curves? Because it's certainly not gaining on the straights, and that's expected. So it's of course also what's difficult about having a car that's quicker through the corners is that you have to push in order to really make any gains, make any inroads. And here is confirmation that Gr1 Bandit is running a very good pace at the moment. Though, as I say that, he does throw away about half a second on the exit of the Porsche curves. And then through the 4 chicanes, Wake is going to be looking to gain even more here. Well, it's about 6 seconds. Still a big ask. Still a big ask indeed. Mick Anthony, oh, off Apple, also needing a second pit stop. So that's gonna allow at least Gentleman Racing and Pescarolo. I don't think Fushidara is gonna get through, but Gentleman Racing, Pescarolo, I think no doubt as well is gonna move on up from this off Apple pit stop. Here the Nuke Shot Motorsports Toyota, sponsored by Atomic Introjectables. And there's Pescarolo getting past as well. Wake, he's just gained a slight bit more. But still just pretty much status quo between the two here in the lead battle. in the GT class, separated by just 6 seconds as we're getting closer and closer to the end of the race. Turn here, he's 2 laps down now. Let's see Joe of the Fire. He's at the start of the Mulsanne straight. It's the question if they're going to be doing 17, 16 or 17 laps. The GTs, I'd expect them to do 16. But of course, I'm no means certain about that, so we'll just have to see. Joe of the Fire, he's going to pass off Apple. Lap traffic, so that's Apple, that's the Toyota of Pescarolo in front. Next up is going to be Gentleman Racing, Mick Anthony, and Wake CU Gr1 Bandit. If he gets that far up the ranks of the GT field, but I would expect him to do so in 3.5 laps time still. As we're watching race leader, class leader, Joe of the Fire. He's done a brilliant job so far. He's been absolutely untouchable. It's been undeniable class from the Woody Professor. And of course, paired with the fact that all of the other contenders in the LMP field has been struck by bad luck. He's been keeping his nose clean and he's been reaping the rewards so far. And now there's not a lot of distance left for him to cover. Of course, still enough time for him to make some kind of mistake, but he even has the time to pit and get out in front afterwards. Of course, if he picks up some engine damage coming out of Dunlop, it's going to be a long lap, and he is going to lose that 52-second gap, but let's not jinx that, let's not even go there. Back to the GT leader, it's Gr1 Bandit for Grip Runners Motorsports. He's doing a brilliant job. He's been running a brilliant race so far. He caught Wake on the undercut. I think Wake has made some kind of mistake after that, and now he's having a very hard time getting back to terms with that Toyota. And as I say that, it's for the first time within 5 seconds. So the Porsche behind is gaining. The question is if it's fast enough. And I predict this might just go all the way to the wire. Of course, it's worth noting that Gr1 Bandit is running on tires that are a lap older than Wake CU's tires. So we might be seeing a considerate grip advantage for the Belgian here over the last couple of laps, over the closing bits of the race. And it might be a decisive factor, because through the first sector here, he's already pulled in an extra second, and now he's absolutely flying up on Bandit. So I think we're in for quite the finale here. And of course, the standings on manufacturer in the LMPs, it's Porsche, and 2 times Toyota. And then in the GTs, it is Toyota, followed by 3 Porsche 911s, and then 3 Toyotas at the back of that. 14.6 seconds from Pescarolo up to Gentleman Racing. Well, Pescarolo on fresh rubber. Wouldn't necessarily think it to be beyond him to close that gap. Wouldn't require many mistakes from Gentleman Racing here over the last couple of laps. Indeed, let's go back up with Bandit. He's holding on to that 5-second advantage. Although it is slightly closing in, we're on board with Wake CU. And they are at the moment 2 laps down on the LMP leaders, so as it stands, they'll be doing 17 laps. We'll have to see about that. Here is Joe of the Fire. He's actually catching up to those two GT leaders right now. I think he's actually in between, if I'm not completely mistaken. And just have gotten past on his teammate. Or is he catching him as we speak? Oh, he is catching him as we speak. We're on board with the witty professor. I think the first time on board with him. Oh, Wake gets a little wide and misses the apex on entrance to the second part of Indianapolis. And Joe of the Fire here, he just has to keep it safe. That's all he has to do. It's 5.1 second. So still status quo in this lead battle. And Joe of the Fire getting safely past Gr1 Bandit on his way through the Porsche curves. Actually a difficult place to have to deal with the traffic. We should see Bandit running a little wide. Certainly dealing a little bit with that understeer. And yet again here through the final sector, Wake CU really closing that gap. And I'd expect to see more of the same as they come through the first sector. Here on the exit of the fourth chicanes, he's really closing. And this time he brings it in onto just about 3.5 seconds. Let's see how close he can get. I'd say it's just a question for him about catching the tail of the slipstream of the Toyota in front for the Mulsanne straight. It's probably not going to happen this time around. Perhaps for the next lap. Well, he's certainly in with a chance if he's able to do so. And as mentioned before, it is by no means over. As we're very close to the final couple of laps of the race. It is by no means over. And having them 3 laps down, it is going to be the penultimate lap, I think, for the GT cars. I'm quite sure of this. It's also the penultimate laps now for the race leader and the class leaders, and that in turn means everybody else, basically. Joe of the Fire, what a brilliant performance. It's been top level stuff from him, as we've come to know him for and expect of him also. But his general level is very high. Rarely does he disappoint. And today it certainly hasn't been the case. So you just see Gr1 Bandit pulling out. He's pulled out, well, 4/5, just about half a second. And that's now further extending. And that's on the straight alone as they come into the second chicane. Martin, you just crashed into a ghosted car. How is that even possible? Well, that's rather tragic. Yeah, indeed. F's out for Martin and his bad race. And yes, Nilse, the BMW Supra is leading. Gr1 Bandit has been doing a sterling job all race. He's kept Wake CU at bay all the way through, and all the other contenders as well. He's kept his nose clean for all this time so far. 1 more lap to go. Of course, 1.5 lap, to be honest. So indeed, a really strong job here from Gr1 Bandit. Deserves all the bit of applause. Martin, or Wake in second here. Mick Anthony running third in the GT class. And as I've mentioned upon earlier, he's been doing a very good job of just keeping it clean. He's within touching distance of Wake CU and Bandit as well. I'd say if any major mistakes happen in between the two, pounce on one of those positions. Just have to see about that. It's the final lap for our LMP class leader, Joe of the Fire. He's leading by a minute down to Jim. Jim in turn also has a minute down to Houdini. So quite a bit of spread in the LMP class indeed. And back with GRM Bandit. As he, for the penultimate time, it is of course rounds the Porsche curves. Still the half the race dog with a little bit of background punditing there. Even behind a closed door, you can't dampen her spirits ever. Oh, Bandit picks up a 1.5 second penalty coming onto the final lap, and as I say that, the gap has diminished. It's down to 2.9 seconds, and that in turn means that it could end up being closer than we've actually thought. Now Bandit might be able to run down that penalty, but look at the gap, it's diminishing, and it's diminishing much quicker than he'd ever like to. Here Martin Fairhausen getting past as he's just stationary at the moment. Oh, Bandit getting slippery on the exit of Tete Rouge, and that means he's continually losing time on to the Mulsanne straight. And just as we say that, it's Jim coming up to pass these two cars. Now, if Wake can get in the slipstream of that 919, it might pull him up and get him that all-important slingshot, as he's still gaining on the Supra. And he's within a second by the first chicane. Oh, I think Bandit goes in a little deep, and that's not the best of exits for him. And that means Wake CU now on the final lap here on the Mulsanne straight. He is within the slipstream. This is going to go right to the wire, ladies and gentlemen. Really, really, really interesting indeed here. It's getting to the point where I'm getting... Oh, just having a sip of coffee here as Wake is trying to put it around the outside here. And he's succeeding. Oh, and he goes wide. And he completely misplaces it. He outbrakes himself on the way into second chicane. And that might be very costly for Wake CU. It might have been the opportunity to get past GRM Bandit. Wake CU now back at the tail. But the Belgian must be feeling the pressure. He must know by now that he has a very limited space of operation now. He really needs to make that move materialize quickly. He's gonna try to grab that inside line on the first kink into Indianapolis. Here he passes, actually, that's early on the straight. And the question is now, well, we're just gonna take a look with Joe of the Fire, who's taken class victory, overall victory as well, for Porsche in the LMPs. And then we're gonna go straight back to GRM Bandit, who bends it on the way into Indianapolis. Oh, and that's gonna mean so much, because that's certainly gonna be the class victory handed there to Wake CU. Let's have another look. A little bit of contact on the way in. He goes a little wide. I think he outbrakes himself. Wake knows better. Oh, GRM Bandit. That is such poor luck. He's driven a brilliant race so far. One of the absolute best showings he's done here in the NES. Only to finish it off with such a piece of outbreaking himself at a crucial point. Side by side with Wake CU there. Now it's going to be second for GRM Bandit. Yeah, Nils has tried that one too, I think. So it's Porsche 1, it's Porsche 2. Jim comes home for second position indeed. And here is Wake CU, who's going to take it to the line for Porsche as well here, taking the lead in class on the final lap, just never giving up, giving it all the way to the line, even though it looked like for a long time that the gap of the Toyota was going to be too big to close down. Well, in turn it wasn't, and Wake CU brings home a brilliant win for Sugar Rush Performance and Porsche here in both classes. GRM Bandit, it's heartbreak on the last lap to finish second in his Toyota. It's Mick Anthony rounding off the GTE podium in his Porsche as well. And of course, the LMP podium, third place finisher here. It's gonna be Houdini. Yeah, the Martini livery here, it's a really good nice attempt there, Kugas. It's gonna be Pescarolo coming home in 4th place in class. And it could have been more for him without the said incident earlier in the race. Gentleman Racing home in 5th position. And Martin still parked there. Then Apple 6th, Fushidara 7th. And that more or less concludes the race here. Of course, big congratulations to our 2 class winners. That's Joe of the Fire and Wake CU. Of course, also to Jim Houdini, to Bandit, and Mick Anthony as well. Mick Anthony, a very nice performance in the GT class. And yeah, Wake, congratulations. That was that must have been intense. Indeed, here are the final standings of this race. And points will be added up shortly. That's nice to know, Apple. So, what a great race in the end. What a great battle in the GT. Excuse me, hashtag real burp. But what a great battle in the GT class that came to last actually for the entire race, more or less, at the end. That was pretty amazing to watch. And I'm a little bit sorry to see it end that way in the gravel trap on the final lap for GRM Bandit. But that's the way, and that's at least one of the ways of motor racing, and in turn also sim racing, indeed. But thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been a pleasure having you along for tonight's race. We will be back tomorrow for more GT Sport, as we're gonna bring you the Audi TT Showdown Series organized by Dr. Hash, with a very, very strong field. With well, just naming a few, we got both Shomar Kenny, we got the GT Alex, we got Avup taking part behind the wheel, of course Dr. Hash himself, just amongst others. So do tune in tomorrow. It's gonna be around 7:45 that we're gonna be going live for the qualifying, and we're gonna be visiting the Nürburgring GP layout as well. Then of course Tuesday we're gonna be back with round 3 of the TSR Super Formula Series, a series that certainly hasn't disappointed so far on the action. So that's of course always something to look forward to. And with that said, then of course Thursday we'll be right back for more Dirten Rally, given that I don't get sick or have any other kind of problems. Oh yeah, Martin, how could I forget? Martin, who almost finished. Good job on actually finishing, Martin. So I'm just being told that the points are being are counted out right now. Team Porsche 43 points, and expected to be more than the Toyotas racked up at the end. Oh yeah, Martin, you're also taking part in the. How could I forget? You're taking part in the TT Cup, of course. The TT Cup, which is a really interesting format, where we're going to be doing 2 races or 2 heats, so to say, of 20-25 minutes, something like that, counted out in laps. No ABS, damage on full. yeah, it's gonna be a show indeed. So there it is, Team Toyota with 33 points all in all. So Porsche taking the overall victory with the class wins in both classes. So no surprise in the end there. And with that said, well, I'm just gonna have our traditional couple of last words. Of course, if you haven't already and you feel like it, you feel like we are worth it, then do like and subscribe to support us, to stay in touch with what we do, and to put a big smile on my face as well. Not that I'm not smiling already, but you know what I mean. And with that said, well, my name is DirtenDK. It's been a pleasure having you along for this NES Season 4.5 special event. We'll be back here on Have the Race Gone tomorrow, so hope to see you there. And until then, take care, have fun, and bye-bye.